Chapter 33. The Fall of a Chieftain. There was never such an overturn in this world. Can I just ask, by the way, is the sound coming out okay on this microphone? It's not doubled up or echoey, is it? Sorry to continue the suspense just that little bit further, but I just thought I'd check in case this is coming out all robot voiced, because that did happen to us before. And all good, okay. No double voice, no weird, nothing. Sounds good. Thanks for his whiz. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, all right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for letting me know. You know what? The penultimate chapter deserves a better start than me saying, "Is me microphone coming in okay? 'Cause I can't hear it." So, I'm going to start again with Chapter 33. The Fall of a Chieftain. What is that voice become? What was it ever? There never was such an overturn in this world. Each of these 6 men was as though he'd been struck, all standing around like that. But with Silver, the blow passed almost instantly. Every thought of his soul had been set full stretch like a racer on that money. Well, he was brought up in a single second, dead, and he kept his head, found his temper, and changed his plan before the others had had time to realise the disappointment. "Jim," he whispered, "take that and stand by for trouble." And he passed me a double-barrelled pistol. At the same time, pardon me, At the same time, he began quietly moving northward, and in a few steps had put the hollow between us 2 and the other 5. Then he looked at me and nodded, as much to say, "Here is a narrow corner," as indeed I thought it was. His looks were now quite friendly, and I was so revolted at these constant changes that I could not forbear whispering, "So you've changed sides again?" There was no time left for him to answer. Tell you what I'm going to do. Because I tell you what, I've stopped. I'm going to put it back on. Because I feel like some, call me crazy, but I feel like some action's coming. So I'm going to turn on auto frame. Because we've got to have that auto frame action, haven't we? For if any action kicks off. "So you've changed sides again." There was no time left for him to answer in. The buccaneers, with oaths, with cries, began to leap one after another into the pit and to dig with their fingers, throwing the boards aside as they did so. Morgan found a piece of gold. He held it up with a perfect spout of oaths. It was a 2-guinea piece. The equivalent of like a £2 coin, basically. And it went from hand to hand among them for a quarter of a minute. "2 guineas!" roared Merry, shaking it at Silver. "That's your £700,000, is it? You're the man for bargains, ain't ya? You're him that never bungled nothing, you wooden-headed lubber." "Dig away, boys," said Silver, with the coolest insolence. "You'll find some pig nuts, and I shouldn't wonder." "Pig nuts!" repeated Merry in a scream. "Pig nuts! Pig nuts!" Now, I don't know what pig nuts are. I'm assuming they're probably an old-fashioned term for peanuts. Maybe that's why we call them peanuts. I don't know. But we all know what pig nuts sounds like. We all know what pig nuts sounds like it might be referring to. And considering the high-octane nature of this exchange between Long John Silver and the furious, devastated pirates, I think it's our duty to imagine that he means what he says when he says pig nuts. Pig nuts! Repeated Merry in a scream. Mates, do you hear that? I tell you now, that man there knew it all along. Look in the face of him, and you'll see it right there. Ah, Merry, remarked Silver, standing for captain again. You're a pushing lad, to be sure. But this time, everyone was entirely in Merry's favour. They began to scramble out of the excavation, darting furious glances behind them. One thing I observed, which looked well for us, they all got out upon the opposite side from Silver. Well, there we stood. 2 on one side, 5 on the other. The pit between us, and nobody screwed up high enough to offer the first blow. Silver never moved as he watched them, very upright on his crutch, and looked as cool as ever I saw him. He was brave, and no mistake. At last, Merry seemed to think a speech might help matters. Mates, says he, there's 2 of them alone here. One's the old cripple that brought us all here and blundered us down to this. The other's that cub that I mean to have the art of. Now, mates! He was raising his arm and his voice and plainly meant to lead a charge, but just then 3 musket shots flashed out of the thicket. Merry tumbled head foremost into the excavation. The man with the bandage spun round like a teetotum and fell at his length upon his side, where he lay dead but still twitching. And the other 3 turned and ran for it with all their might. Before you could wink, Long John had fired 2 barrels of a pistol into the struggling Merry. And as the man rolled up his eyes at him in the last agony, George, said he, I reckon I settled you. At the same moment, the Doctor, Gray and Ben Gunn joined us with smoking muskets from among the nutmeg trees. Gray, a.k.a. Mr. Bates. Hello, everyone. The Doctor. Quick. And Ben Gunn. Gives a piece of cheese. Forward, cried the Doctor. Double quick, my lads. We must head 'em off the boats. And we set off at a great pace, sometimes plunging through the bushes to the chest. I tell you, but Silver was anxious to keep up with us. The work that man went through, leaping on his crutch till the muscles of his chest were fit to burst, was work no sound man ever equalled, and so thinks the Doctor. As it was, he was already 30 yards behind us and on the verge of strangling when we reached the brow of the slope. Doctor, he hailed. See there, no worry. Sure enough, there was no hurry. In a more open part of the plateau, we could see the 3 survivors still running in the same direction as they had started, right for Mizzenmast Hill. We were already between them and the boats, and so we 4 sat down to breathe, while Long John, mopping his face, came slowly up with us. Thank you kindly, Doctor, says he. You came in about the nick, I guess, for me and Hawkins. And so it is you, Ben Gunn, he added. Well, you're a nice one, to be sure. I'm Ben Gunn, I am, replied the maroon, wriggling like an eel in his embarrassment. Oh, I'm Ben Gunn, I am. I don't know why he did that, and I don't know why he's embarrassed. Sorry. And, he added after a long pause, weird behaviour, I'm Ben Gunn, I am. And, I thought he'd gone dormant. I thought he was hibernating. And, he added after a long pause, how do, Mr. Silver? Pretty well, I think you, says you. Ben, murmured Silver, to think as you've done me. The doctor sent back Grey for one of the pickaxes, deserted in their flight by the mutineers, and then, as we proceeded leisurely downhill to where the boats were lying, related in a few words what had taken place. It was a story that profoundly interested Silver, and Ben Gunn, the half-idiot maroon, was the hero from beginning to end. Ben. So here we imagine a sort of montage of Ben Gunn. Ben, in his long, lonely wanderings about the island, had found the skeleton. It was he that had rifled it. He had found the treasure. He had dug it up. It was the haft of his pickaxe that lay broken in the excavation. He had carried it on his back in many weary journeys from the foot of the tall pine to a cave he had on the two-pointed hill at the northeast angle of the island, and there it had lain, stored in safety, since 2 months before the arrival of the Hispaniola. When the doctor had wormed this secret from him on the afternoon of the attack, and when, next morning, he saw the anchorage deserted, he had gone to Silver, given him the chart, which was now useless, given him the stores, for Ben Gunn's cave was well supplied with goat's meat salted by himself, given anything and everything to get a chance of moving in safety from the stockade to the two-pointed hill, there to be clear of malaria, was that swampy lowland, and keep a guard upon the money. As for you, Jim, he said, it went against my heart, but I did what I thought best for those who had stood by their duty, and if you were not one of these, whose fault was it? So, of course, the doctor thought Jim had dashed off and deserted him and gone and joined the pirates. That morning, finding that I was to be involved in the horrid disappointment he had prepared for the mutineers, he had run all the way to the cave, and, leaving the squire to guard the captain, who, of course, lest we forget, is grievously injured, had taken Grey and the maroon and started, making the diagonal across the island to be at hand beside the pine. Soon, however, he saw that our party had the start of him, and Ben Gunn, being fleet of foot, I suppose he'd have to be by now, wouldn't he? He's probably been walking around with no shoes on for several years. 5 years. 5 years! Is it 5 years? Several years he's been walking around with no shoes on, so he's developed the feet of an absolute hobbit, I would think, by this point. Hopping to and fro. Being fleet of foot, had been dispatched in front to do his best alone. Then it had occurred to him to work upon the superstitions of his former shipmates. So that was the Darby McGraw voice we heard. And he was so far successful that Grey and the doctor had come up and were already ambushed before the arrival of the treasure hunters. Ah, said Silver. It were fortunate for me that I had Hawkins here. You would have let old John be cut to bits and never given it a thought, Doctor. Not a thought, replied Dr. Livesey, cheerily. And by this time we had reached the gigs. The doctor, with a pickaxe, demolished one of them, and then we all got aboard the other and set out to go round by sea for North Inlet. This was a run of 8 or 9 miles. Silver, though he was almost killed already with fatigue, was set to an oar like the rest of us, and we were soon skimming swiftly over a smooth sea. Soon we passed out of the straits and doubled the southeast corner of the island, round which, 4 days ago, we had towed the Hispaniola. As we passed the two-pointed hill, we could see As we passed the two-pointed hill, we could see the black mouth of Ben Gunn's cave, and a figure standing by it, leaning on a musket. It was the squire. "Hello, everybody!" And we waved a handkerchief and gave him 3 cheers. "It's cheers for the squire, everybody! Hub up! Huzzah! Hub up! Huzzah! Hub up! Huzzah!" In which the voice of Silver joined in as heartily as any. 3 miles farther, just inside the mouth of North Inlet, what should we meet but the Hispaniola, cruising by herself? The flood had lifted her, and had there been much wind or a strong tide current as in the southern anchorage, we should never have found her more, or found her stranded beyond help. As it was, there was little amiss, beyond the wreck of the mainsail. Another anchor was got ready. Another anchor was got ready. What, they've just made an anchor, have they? To replace the anchor that Jim sunk to the bottom of the sea when he cut it loose? Where have they got a new anchor from? Anchors have to be forged from iron in these days, and were enormous. They would require often a team of horses to pull them on a carriage down to the dock to be attached to the hawser, and therefore the ship. So where, may I ask, have a man with dressed only in a shirt made out of an empty packet of cheddar and a dead goat, a doctor, an old Anchors R Us, Aldi Middle Isle. It was Aldi Middle Isle. Ship's carrier spare in the boots, says Hagen Ivan. Either of these are very valid suggestions. Thanks for clearing that up, guys. Ben Gunn had one in his man cave. That's true. Man caves are often full of that kind of stupid crap, aren't they? Yeah, I bet he did. Did they literally mean a new one or a makeshift one? Green tea, it says here, another anchor was got ready. That's all the information they've given us. Anchors are huge. What are they made it out of? Rocks? Old cheese that Ben Gunn can't eat anymore? No, because he would have ate it all, wouldn't he? So it's definitely not an old bit of cheese. One of the squire's plum duffs, probably. One of the spare plum duffs. Well, we had 3 people's birthday while you were all off. So we've got all these plum duffs. Right, so I'm adding that in myself. Another anchor was got ready out of several plum duffs that the squire had made over the course of their stay in the cave, and dropped in 1.5 fathoms of water. We all pulled round again to Rum Cove, the nearest point for Ben Gunn's treasure house, and then Gray, single-handed, returned with the gig to the Hispaniola, where he was to pass the night on guard. A gentle slope ran up from the beach to the entrance of the cave. At the top, the squire met us. To me he was cordial and kind, saying nothing of my escapade, either in the way of blame or praise. "Hello, Jem!" Squire Abbott, "No, don't worry about all that. It isn't English to discuss such things. Please come in." At Silver's polite salute, he somewhat flushed. The closest an old English nobleman gets to expressing his anger. Well, I mean, he is very angry, isn't he? He's very bilious. But, that's how he would describe. "I was somewhat flushed," as he punches a wall. "John Silver," he said, "you're a prodigious villain and impostor, a monstrous impostor, sir. I am told I am not to prosecute you. Well, then I will not. But the dead men, sir, hang about your neck like millstones." Well said, Squire. "Thank you kindly, sir," replied Long John, again saluting. I think that clears up the psychopath question, doesn't it? "Thank you, sir." "You killed all those people?" Well, fine. But you'll burn in hell. No, thank you, sir. Thank you kindly, sir, replied Long John, again saluting, and in the back of his mind, well, Long John, only for your mind. Oh, what a great island, guys. Oh, you could park a four-court scener in this harbour here. What's the deal here with those knives, fellow crewmates? No, please. And I reckon I've done for you, George Merry. Thank you kindly, sir, said Long John, again saluting. I dare you to thank me, cried the squire. It is a gross dereliction of my duty. Stand back. And thereupon we all entered the cave. It was a large, airy place, with a little spring and a pool of clear water, overhung with ferns. Sounds lovely. Sounds very hygge. Bit of greenery. The floor was sand. Before a big fire lay Captain Smollett. And in a far corner, only duskily flickered over by the blaze, I beheld great heaps of coin and quadrilaterals built of bars of gold. That was Flint's treasure that we had come so far to seek, and that had cost already, oh my goodness, the lives of 17 men from the Hispaniola. 17. How many it had cost in the amassing. What blood and sorrow. What good ships scuttled on the deep. What brave men walking the plank blindfold. What shot of cannon. What shame and lies and cruelty. Perhaps no man alive could tell. Yet there were still 3 upon that island. Silver and old Morgan and Ben Gunn, who had each taken his share in these crimes, as each had hoped in vain to share in the reward. Come in, Jim, said the captain. You're a good boy in your line, Jim. I'll rephrase that. You're a good boy in your line, Jim. But I don't think you and me'll get to see again. You're too much of the born favourite for me. Is that you, John Silver? What brings you here, man? Come back to me duty, sir. Come back to me duty, sir, returned Silver. Ah, said the captain. And that was all he said. What a supper I had of it that night, with all my friends around me. And what a meal it was, with Ben Gunn's salted goat, and some delicacies, and a bottle of old wine from the Hispaniola. Never, I am sure, were people gayer or happier. And there was Silver, sitting back almost out of the firelight, but eating heartily, prompt to spring forward when anything was wanted, even joining quietly in our laughter. The same bland, polite, obsequious seaman of the voyage out. End of the penultimate chapter.